Hey guys. Urizi here. This is what if Naruto was a time traveler but he doesn't know. Naruto has been a time traveler his whole life. It just took him years to realize it. Hit like and subscribe, and also don't forget to check the author. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1. The first time it happened, the 4-year-old boy just tripped on his own 2 feet. 1 second he was in a back street, waving his arms around trying to regain his balance. The next he was in the main avenue of the village, spitting out a mouthful of dirt as he stood back up, knees bleeding from the hard impact with the ground. The blonde kid just looked around him, confused, before shrugging it off and going about his day, shoulders hunched around his head and shooting suspicious glares at the villagers who had yet to show distaste at his presence. He ended up relaxing, mingling with the crowd and bumping into people just to see their reaction. Some scoffed and told him to look where he went, others sighed with indulgence, and a small number even laughed and apologized. It was surreal. Feeling daring, he even bought an apple from the old woman who usually pretended he didn't exist. It was a good day, Naruto decided. Then he tripped on a stone, his nose met the ground, and when he looked up, he was still in the main avenue, but there was a wide breadth around him. His sharp ears caught a mumbled sneer, "Little freak, always gets in the way," and he turned around, stuck his tongue out and bellowed an insult that went along the lines of poop face before storming away from the marketplace. So much for having a good day. The next time was similar. He walked, tripped, and when he got back up, people were nicer, or at least didn't mind his existence. Naruto happily went along with the weird fluke, thinking that adults were odd creatures with strange rights. He decided to fall more often just to escape the stares. It never worked. He tried buying an apple from the woman. Her face kept changing from one day to the next. Naruto wondered if it was a cool jutsu. He asked the old man. He was the only adult worth knowing, and with him came money and sometimes ramen, and sometimes even a pat on the head, and it was just, and he laughed, the thin skin around his eyes crinkling with mirth. No, my boy. This is just a trick from life. No one escapes the mark left by the passing of time. Naruto didn't get one word from that speech and shrugged, placing that under the mysteries of life mental checklist he kept. Still, the lady kept changing faces. One day wrinkled, one day smooth. He quickly learned to which face he could buy his apples. Stingy old hag. Adults were weird. He met a boy one day. The villagers kept shouting at him, scoffing at his excuses and muttering about no good orphans causing trouble. Naruto kept his distance. It was a good day. The villagers left him alone and he got his apples plus a full bag of lemons, which was a real treat as the yellow fruit was a rarity in Konoha and always sold out fast. He definitely didn't need to attract bad attention by associating with the other troublemaker. Nodding wisely at his decision, the blonde boy munched on his green apple, enjoying the sweet acid juice and thinking about the lemonade he'd make when he got home. Not a second later, the other boy bumped into him and his lemons spilled onto the ground. "Wah! Sorry. I didn't see you." Almost jumping out of his skin at the screamed apologies, Naruto just stared with wide eyes and apple-filled cheeks as the boy grew teary-eyed the longer he apologized and bowed to him. He bowed. Nobody ever apologized to Naruto, or bowed or even talked really. They just ignored him. Blinking owlishly, the blonde boy mumbled at shok through the crushed apple bits he had yet to swallow in his surprise. Immediately, the other kid beamed at him and Naruto felt his eyes prickle. Someone was talking to him and smiling. Just for him. "I'm Obito, by the way. I never saw you around before." Sniffing back the snot that wanted to trickle down his nose, the 4-year-old roughly scrubbed his eyes and tried to introduce himself after swallowing his mouthful. He took a step forward, a smile tugging at his lips. "I'm Yuzu," and promptly met the floor, right foot rolling on a forgotten lemon. When he got up, rubbing at his smarting skull, there were no more lemons and the brown-haired kid was long gone. There was a burning feeling in his eyes and he sniffled before slapping his cheeks. He won't cry. It didn't hurt at all. Chapter 2. Why Yuzu? The yell came from behind him, and before he could react, a boy was draped over his back, talking a mile a minute about how he missed him, and where did he go, and he forgot his lemons, and was it a shunshin, and it was so cool he should teach him, and what did you call me? Naruto asked, confused. Surely Obito mistook him for someone else. No one missed Naruto Uzumaki ever. Obito looked sheepish as he scratched the back of his neck. Sorry, you were gone so fast I didn't quite catch your name. Then I saw the lemons and Yuzu just stuck. Yuzu. Huh. Maybe it was better than telling his name. People always seemed horrified when he told them who he was. It was like a curse. But Yuzu. I like it, he decided, and Obito smiled proudly. They spent the rest of the day together, running up and down the streets, echoes of shrieking laughter the only sign of their passage. It was a really good day. So Naruto quickly understood that there were two Konoha. There was the one that recoiled at his name, and there was the one that didn't care about him. There was the one where he was known as Naruto Uzumaki, and the one where he was simply Yuzu. To his young mind, it was just the normal order of things. Everyone had bad days and good days. Everyone experienced cold Konoha and warm Konoha. People changed moods, changed faces, some streets even disappeared, but Naruto guessed it was normal in a ninja village. Once you witnessed a shinobi breathing fire, nothing seemed strange anymore. All in all, he only wished that he could have more good days than bad days. And if sometimes at night he'd close his eyes and wish really hard to be Yuzu, just Yuzu, well, nobody had to know, right? He didn't realize he was so dependent on good days until he met with the old man one morning and had to clear his voice twice before talking. Nowadays, the only one he spoke with was Obito, and it had been a month since they last met. He tried searching for the older boy, but he didn't know his last name, nor did he know where he lived. Naruto would never say it, but he often wondered if he was just touched in the head like he heard people say with sympathy about the old Taka-san who lived down the street. He wondered if Obito was even real, if the good days even existed. Old man, you're real, right? He asked as he looked up at the only person who seemed to care about Naruto Uzumaki. They were walking down a worn-out path in the forest where they first met. The old man had promised they'd fish. He seemed surprised by the question but took it in stride as he pondered his answer, a large, wrinkled hand coming to pat his head. I'm as real as you are, he settled for as he offered his hand. Naruto quickly grasped it, sticky fingers squeezing around callous flesh. The old man squeezed back, tight enough that Naruto could almost feel his bones grinding together, as he gasped in shock. See? No illusion. Now come, I think this spot will be nice for fishing. They sat and fished and Naruto kept quiet, unsure if he was happy or sad that this Konoha was the real one. Chapter 3. He started the academy and things were good. He was learning about being a ninja. He hadn't seen Obito in months, and the stingy old hag hadn't sold him apples in months too, but it was okay, the academy kept him busy enough to forget about his friend. Maybe the other kid was a civilian, and that's why he hadn't seen him at school. He never asked him. Perhaps the next time their paths cross, Naruto could tell him all about the academy and make him join? Or was it too late for Obito, who was 2 years older than him? It was a bit lonely at the academy. Naruto didn't make any new friends, but it's not like he had been trying, to be honest. He spent much of his time trying to understand the given homework, or planning a prank on some mean villager. It had nothing to do with the fact that most kids just ignored him to begin with. He didn't care one bit. So what if the blonde-haired girl in his class was always with the pink-haired one, and seemed to know all the other kids but him? She clearly didn't see that Naruto was awesome, and that was her problem, not his. With that thought in mind, he jumped over a puddle of mud and landed right into another. He blinked, confused. Either his aim was crap or he hadn't noticed the other puddle. The blonde boy shrugged, looked at his stained clothes, and after a moment of reflection, decided to jump again in the puddle to see how far the splashes went. Now that his clothes were ruined, no need to be careful. He was so absorbed by his silly game that he didn't see nor hear anyone coming. Yuzu? At that, the boy looked up, startled. Oh, he thought, this is a good day then. A smile quickly grew on his lips, genuine joy spreading in his little body as Obito ran towards him. There was a forehead protector tied above his protective glasses, and Naruto shouted with delight and awe. You're a ninja! Obito grinned widely and adjusted the spotless headband before gasping dramatically like he remembered something, eyes going wide as he reached for the blond boy's shoulders and violently shook him. Yuzura! Where have you been? It's been almost half a year since I last saw you. I was worried, you know. I thought you had died. His voice tapered off as he sniffled, and he quickly pushed his glasses up and rubbed at his eyes, one hand still clutched tightly around Yuzu's collar. Naruto blinked, startled. He tilted his head to one side, then the other, as if trying to understand a complicated math problem. Are you crying? No, Obito said as he snatched a bottle from his pouch and dripped some liquid in his eyes. There was dust or something in my eyes, that's all. Uchiha don't cry. The last sentence was recited with so much conviction that Naruto didn't have the heart to point out that the boy still had snot dangling from his nose from his dramatic crying feet, nor the fact that he had glasses that should have kept the dust away. Instead, he went with sympathy. Once I squeezed a lemon so hard I got juice in my eyes, he confided, pursing his lips in remembrance. That got a snicker out of Obito, who patted the younger boy on the back, still sniffling a little. I miss you, Yuzu. I'm glad I finally found you again. You always disappear for months and months without telling me anything. Don't make me worry like that. At a loss for words, Naruto shrugged, uncomfortable in his skin. Sorry, he mumbled. Then he brightened, brandishing a fist. Do you go on missions now that you're a ninja? Have you saved a princess and fought samurais? A sly grin stretched Obito's lips as he rubbed his hands together. Oh, Yuzu, I have so much to tell you. And Naruto listened in awe, eyes twinkling with stars, to Obito's exaggerated stories of slaying dragons and gaining the daimyo's favors and even getting his daughter to fall in love with him. He, too, hoped he'd be a mighty shinobi one day, just like his friend. Chapter 4. The Uchiha all died last night. The only one left in the village was a boy in his class he never talked to, and Naruto wanted to cry. Obito was an Uchiha, and Obito was not the boy from his class, Sasuke was. And so, Obito was dead. When the Uchiha boy finally came back to school, eyes swollen and red as he sat stiffly at a table, Naruto glared at him and bared his teeth. The boy frowned and sneered before looking away, hiding his face in his high collar. It wasn't fair, the blond boy wanted to tell him. It wasn't fair that he got to live but not his friend. It wasn't fair that he would be once again all alone. It wasn't fair at all. Obito had been dead for 10 months, and Naruto's good days had yet to pick up since. He idly wondered if it had really just been a dream after all. With all that time spent alone, Naruto had done a lot of thinking. Was he sad that Obito died? Yes. But was he sad because he had liked the boy or because it meant he was now truly on his own? Obito had been dead for 10 months, and Naruto was still too much of a coward to answer this question. It was during a taijutsu match, 2 years after the massacre nobody talked about, that it happened again. Naruto had just been punched in the jaw by Sasuke and was sent rolling to the ground. Sensei called the match despite the blond boy's yells. I can still fight. Nobody paid him attention, getting ready for the next match, and Naruto snarled as he lunged himself at the Uchiha's back. The next thing he knew, his face met a tree trunk and he slid to the ground, clutching at his forehead. The hell? He whined as he glanced around him. He was still on the academy grounds, that was for sure, but his class was not there anymore, and it looked like the academy was closed for the day. The blond boy squinted and slowly got up to his feet, stomach coiled unpleasantly. Surely it couldn't be. Hope rising like a flame being fanned, Naruto dashed out of the academy's training grounds and followed the path leading to the city center. He ran as fast as his legs would go, and only came to a stop when he reached the stand selling green and red apples. Out of breath, panting like a dog, the boy stepped forward, hands clutched into his t-shirt, and yelled, "Hello!" to the young woman manning the front. She was slightly older than what he was used to but also still younger than what he was used to. It was confusing. She startled at the loud greeting before offering a bemused smile. Hello to you too. Here for some apples? Naruto bit his lip, nodded yes, paid for his one neon green apple with the spare change sitting at the bottom of his pocket, and hurriedly walked away, heading straight for the forest within the village's borders that he knew like the back of his hand. Apple cradled between his sweaty palms and held tight to his chest, Naruto walked and walked until he couldn't hear the sounds of the village anymore. Only then did he stop, crouching on the mossy soil as his knees trembled. Head bowed down, an apple held tight, Naruto cried, ugly sobs tearing out of his throat as snot dripped from his nose. He was back. He was finally back to the good Konoha, to the good days. And Naruto wished to never leave. Chapter 5. Yuzu was living the good life. True, he didn't have a house to go back to, nor did he have money to buy food, but the academy had taught him to survive in the woods, and the forest surrounding Konoha had been his playground since, well, forever, really. He had become quite good at fishing and hunting down small games in the 3 days he'd been there. Sometimes, he would go to the center of the village, where the marketplace was, and he would exchange some of his catches for juicy fruits or ripe vegetables. Nobody told him to get out of the way, nobody turned their eyes away when he watched them, nobody ignored him when he asked for things. It was strange, and everything he had ever wanted. Each night, Yuzu would squeeze his eyes shut and pray that it never stopped, afraid that he'd wake up in the morning in his dingy old apartment with an empty fridge and even emptier life. And when the morning came and instead of an off-white ceiling he'd be met with evergreen leaves, Yuzu would grin so hard his cheeks hurt. So far, he hadn't met anyone new. Perhaps it was better this way though. The wound of Obito's death had scabbed over long ago, but he was still not ready to go out there and make new friends, too afraid of being hurt once more. He had learned that being alone sucked, but losing a friend was like losing a limb, and the pain never really went away for good. Walking along a marked path in the forest, Yuzu played with the stick, beating at the grass that grew too tall on some patches. He hummed a little song under his breath, listening to the sounds of little critters scuttling around in the trees and the bushes. The sun was high in the sky, noon had just passed and hunger was starting to make itself known to his young stomach. Thinking about the money the not old apple lady gave him for his squirrel, the blond boy turned on his heels, ready to go back to the village and treat himself to some dango. Mouth already watering, the boy quickened his steps, almost skipping. Well, someone is happy, I see. Yuzu almost tripped on his feet as he squealed before remembering that he was a ninja in training, even though he hadn't been to the academy since he came to the good Konoha, and trying to get into a fighting stance. That got him a laugh that came from somewhere up in the trees, and Yuzu bristled. Oh. He had forgotten what it was like being made fun of. Hey. There's nothing funny, believe it! He yelled, red creeping up his cheeks as he tried to tuck his chin in the collar of his shirt. He should have taken his jacket with him instead of letting it dry after washing it. It would have given him more space to hide. Sorry. The leaves just above Yuzu rustled, and someone dropped down in front of him. Hands ruffled dark brown hair before readjusting a pair of orange-tinted goggles. Yuzu dropped out of his fighting stance, mouth agape. Man, I've been looking for you everywhere. You really have a knack for disappearing, Yuzu. What have you been up to, huh? Can't believe you ditched me for so long, the boy said in a pout. But Yuzu wasn't listening and took a step back, no sound coming from his trembling lips. That was not possible. That really was not possible, right? He swallowed around a lump in his throat and pointed an accusing finger at the other boy. But you're dead. A second passed in utter silence, Obito's eyes growing larger and larger as he lost all colors. Then the boy gasped and started screaming his head off. Huh? Really? Does it mean I'm a ghost? Wah! Fat tears were flowing out of his eyes as he tugged at his hair. I can't be a ghost. I'm afraid of ghosts. Why Yuzu you? What do I do? I don't know. Yuzu screamed back, still backing off. Your whole family is dead. What? Obito tried to reach for Yuzu, but the blond boy yelled in fright and tried to keep him away with his stick. Begone! Begone! Eventually, Obito managed to wrap his hands around one of Yuzu's arms and clung to him, snot dribbling from his nose. No! Yuzu! Don't banish me away. I don't know how to come back from the Pure Land. The two boys were both screaming so loudly at each other that neither registered the 3 sets of hurried feet rushing towards them and skidding to a halt when they reached the scene. Obito, came a bewildered voice loud enough to talk over the screams. What are you doing? Still clinging to Yuzu, the brown-haired boy turned his head towards the voice and let out a loud sob before screeching, Sensei Thee. The rest of his sentence was completely garbled by his hysteric sobs as well as Yuzu's continued screams to get off. Get off! Get off! It took a few minutes to calm down both boys who squirmed under the judgmental eyes of Team 7 once it was established that no, Obito wasn't dead, and no, the Uchiha weren't dead either. The whole time, Yuzu wondered with growing dread if he was crazy. 2 hours later, after being lectured sternly by Obito's sensei about bad jokes, Yuzu promised to meet up for a snack with Obito and his team. You'll finally meet them properly. You pulled a vanishing act last time when I wanted to introduce you. That was so rude, by the way. On his way to the tea place they chose for their get-together, Yuzu tripped on a root. Grumbling about having to wash his clothes again, he stood up, confused. The sun had gone away and the moon had taken its place. Instead of the well-known part of the forest he'd been living in, he was standing in a training field not far from the academy grounds. Ah! He was back. Naruto closed his eyes and gnashed his teeth to keep from screaming in anger. Fists clenched tightly in his shirt and throat bobbing up and down, he finally lost the battle, and in a yell that got lost in the night, the blonde pariah boy of Konoha cried at the unfairness of the world. Chapter 6. One day, as he was running around the village to shake the Chunin chasing him off his trail, Naruto ended up near Training Field 3 where a newly minted genin team was being beaten up by a jounin who showed no pity. It was an amusing sight that made Naruto snicker as he slowed down to watch the show. But the jounin caught him staring and glared at Naruto, who stuck out his tongue and pulled one eyelid with his middle finger before jogging away. He didn't go too far, hiding under some bushes as he knew the Chunin were unlikely to come and stomp all over the field to find him when it was being used by a jounin. He lied on his belly, making himself at home on the damp soil, idly playing with some pebbles and pulling at tufts of grass. Naruto listened to the jounin berating the kids who apparently had just failed some sort of test. The boy didn't give it much attention as the man dramatically started to drone on and on about duty and scum and dying on the field. Naruto stifled a yawn into his elbow. It was even more boring than when Iruka-sensei talked about history. It took him a moment to notice that the jounin had stopped talking, and so he chanced a glance at the field to see if the coast was clear and grinned when he saw no one. He shimmied from under his hiding place, rubbed his dirty hands together in an attempt to clean them a bit, and started walking back to the middle of the empty training field, whistling happily as he thought about his next prank. You really need to work on your subtlety, kid. Naruto froze on his tracks, choking on his spit. The weird jounin was crouched in front of a stone, not even bothering to look at him. It was well hidden from sight if one wasn't looking specifically for it. Hesitantly, Naruto took a step, then two, and when the jounin said nothing, he slowly crept his way towards him, but kept away from grabbing distance. Peering at the stone, he frowned. What's that? He wasn't really expecting an answer, just thought out loud. It was a good way to make sure his voice didn't get rusty, as no one ever wanted to willingly engage in a discussion with him, and thus was surprised when the man pointed at the stone and explained, "It's a memorial for all the shinobi who gave their lives for the village." At that, Naruto immediately lost all interest in the stone. Oh. Okay. Still, he stared at the stone, reading the names out of curiosity. Maybe some of his classmates' relatives were on it. Maybe his own relatives were on it, and gasped when one caught his attention. He pointed accusingly at the stone. Ha! I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! The jounin stared at him unblinkingly, and despite his mask and hitayate covering most of his face, Naruto could still guess the confusion etched on it. He's dead, he said, waving his hands around. And then his team told me he wasn't. But he is, I've got proof now. And then he gasped again, bringing his hands to his cheeks in horror. Perhaps they're all ghosts, and they just don't know it. That realization made the boy pale as he trembled in fear. Oh no, my friend is a ghost, and he's gonna haunt me. No. Naruto couldn't let that happen. He'll need to find a way for Obito and his teammates to rest in peace so they wouldn't haunt him, or eat him, or whatever it was ghosts did. He'll ask the old man? He knew everything, surely he know how to get rid of ghosts, right? Right. Determined, Naruto turned away from the stone and ran towards the tower, not even trying to escape his Chunin stalkers this time around, as they would get him straight to the man he sought anyway. Left alone at the memorial, Kakashi blinked once, then twice, and huffed a sigh. Ma-sensei, your son is a weird little enigma. Chapter 7. The next time Naruto saw Obito, he had just been punched in the face by Sasuke after he grumpily asked him to tell his dead family to stop stalking me. Damn it, I hate ghosts. It had been ill-received, apparently. TSK, so rude. See if Naruto was ever going to relay any messages from the beyond to that dumbass. Jaw still a bit tender, he stared for long seconds at the very much alive Uchiha Kid and his teammates, who were in the middle of their lunch break and who were staring right back at him with furrowed brows or bulging eyes. How did you do that? Obito yelled, pointing at the hole of the blonde boy who just started slapping his cheeks, mumbling something about craziness and ghosts and the academy. The man who was their sensei scrutinized him, thoughtful. I didn't sense any chakra surge, surely that couldn't have been a shunshin, right? How peculiar. And then the kid just looked at them, screamed, "You're all dead," and ran away blindly, never seeing the training post on his path as he slammed into it and disappeared, leaving behind him flabbergasted spectators. Oh my god, where did Yuzu go? It happened 2 more times before he managed to sit down with Obito's team and learn their names. They kept asking him questions about his last disappearances. You just poofed away without using chakra. What technique is that? Is it a secret clan technique or something? Come on, tell me. I don't know what you're talking about. You're the ones who always disappear. It's scary, but gave up when they got nothing logical out of the boy. When he got back to the bad Konoha, Naruto sat down and thought for a long time before going to the public archives, where he spent the whole day trying to fish out some information about Obito. But almost everything concerning the Uchiha clan was classified, and he never got the surnames of Kakashi, Rin, or that Minato-sensei of theirs. So he waited for the end of a school day to go and ask Iruka-sensei directly. Surely the man would know about former academy students. He won't ask about Obito. People kept saying the Uchiha were all dead, but sometimes they weren't, and it was confusing. But he would bet his whole stash of cup ramen that Iruka-sensei would know about Kakashi. The other boy was always holding himself like an arrogant twat, and Naruto knew from experience that this type of people were used to being the best at everything. Bleh. Forget the ramen, Naruto would bet his right arm that Kakashi had been the rookie of the year. Vibrating on his seat, waiting for the classroom to empty, Naruto almost jumped on his unsuspecting teacher to ask him his question. Sensei, d'you know a Kakashi or something? And like a switch being flicked, Iruka-sensei narrowed his eyes, suspicious. Why are you asking, Naruto-kun? Then he crossed his arms and began tapping his foot on the floor. It better not be a prank. Did you do something to Hataki-san? Hataki, huh? Naruto grinned widely. Nope, nothing, thanks sensei, bye. And the kid ran out of the classroom, refusing to slow down as Iruka tried to call him back. When he got to the archives the next day, he found out that Kakashi Hataki was still very much alive at 24, a fearsome jounin, and the sole surviving member of Team 7. He was also the weird jounin that kept looking at a stone with tired, lonely eyes. Chapter 8. Yuzu was munching happily on an apple, perched on the low branch of a tree overseeing Training Field 3. It had been deserted the whole day, and the boy had taken the opportunity to just lounge around, happy to have landed on good Konoha on the day of his history test on the last Shinobi War. He had chucked off his sweater and jacket upon his arrival, surprised to find that this Konoha was still in the throes of summer, whereas this morning, snow had been falling. He had given up on trying to understand what was happening around him, why the world kept changing while he was caught in the eye of the storm, feeling unbalanced. Perhaps he really was crazy. Pa! Who cared? he'd live his life to the fullest. At least it was nice, and Obito got to live instead of being dead with the rest of the Uchiha clan and Team 7. As if summoned by his thoughts, the boy and his team were trekking their way up to the field, their voices still too far to understand what was being said but close enough for the light wind to carry them around. Their sensei knew almost instantly that Yuzu was here and waved at him as they walked under his tree. Yuzu grinned and waved back, lying on his stomach across the branch to better see Team 7. It was nice to be acknowledged. "How are you doing, Yuzu-kun?" "Fine," the boy smiled, crunching on his apple before adding, almost as an afterthought, "You know, you're dead." The sensei smiled awkwardly and Kakashi frowned. "You're lucky you're not a shinobi. This could be taken as treason to threaten your allies with death." "It's the truth, though." "You're dead," he said as he pointed at the blonde man. "And you're dead," he then pointed at the girl. "And you're dead too." He finished as he pointed at Obito, wincing at his friend's dramatic wail. Then he pointed at Kakashi, tilted his head from one side to the other, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "And you're a boring weird old man." "Bleh." This got a laugh out of Obito. "That's cause of your gray mane, haha, look at that." He tried to poke at Kakashi's hair only for his teammate to twist his arm around. "Ow, ow, ow. Sensei, help." "TCH, useless," the other boy said before releasing him with a push that landed Obito on all fours. He then turned his attention back to Yuzu. "And you, get out of here. We booked this training field. No one is allowed in the vicinity while shinobi are using it." Yuzu pouted. "I really prefer you when you're an old fart." "Ah, Yuzu-kun," the sensei tried, only to be cut off by Kakashi. "We don't have time to play around with useless civilians. We're at war and need to train, so get off our training ground and go be a nuisance elsewhere." "Oh, Kakashi. Don't talk to him like that." The teenager glared at his teammate. "You can go ahead and be a nuisance elsewhere too." "Okay, enough," Minato-sensei said sternly. "Yuzu-kun, we're always happy to talk with you, but Kakashi-kun is right. We have to train and civilians aren't allowed nearby." "Kakashi-kun, we already talked about this. Mind your words." Silence stretched between the boys and Yuzu climbed down the tree, refusing the man's help. Once his feet were back on the ground, he looked at the whole of Team 7 with furrowed brows. Then he shook his head and ran away, waving goodbye at Obito. "War," Yuzu thought. "We're at war," Kakashi had said. "But—" The boy stopped running, catching his breath. He looked around, at the marketplace that lacked the newest stalls installed a few months ago, at the tower that was a dull red instead of a vibrant one, and finally, at the mountain overlooking the village. He was so used to it that he never took the time to stare at it anymore because he knew exactly what he would find: 4 stern faces of the former leaders, a symbol of strength and lasting peace. But now that he looked, he could only see 3 faces. "We're at war," Kakashi had said. But it wasn't true. Chapter 9. "You shouldn't go, you know," was the first thing Yuzu told him the next time Obito found him and told him about the Canopy Bridge. He shouldn't. It was classified information, and if it was known that Obito opened his big fat mouth and talked about such a vital mission to a civilian, the blonde boy wouldn't even look at him, knees held tight against his chest and eyes riveted to a tuft of grass poking between his sandaled feet. Obito had been looking for him. He had wanted to teach his young friend some moves before going away, just in case some enemy shinobi managed to breach the village's security. War was no joke, he had learned in his last missions. Every time he came back from one of them, he'd wonder if the next one would be the one to kill him. "Why are you saying that? Don't trust in my great ninja skills anymore?" He teased the boy, crouching down in front of him and trying to meet his eyes. But Yuzu kept his gaze firmly on his feet. He seemed downcast, as if the weight of the world was resting on his shoulders, trying to hide behind his fringe. He had taken to wear goggles recently, similar to the ones Obito was wearing, but today, Yuzu had foregone them. A pity, Obito thought. He liked having someone trying to emulate him. It made him feel important, competent, cherished. "I just think you shouldn't go. You'll die on your next mission, believe it." "Oh wow, way to make me feel confident, shrimp. I thought we were done with the death omens." Silence. "Yuzu?" A sigh, and the boy finally looked up with red-rimmed eyes. You'll die, and then nothing will ever be the same anymore. Don't go, Obito. It was Obito's turn to sigh as he finally sat down properly, tearing at some grass blades. Yuzu. I knew what I was getting into when I became a shinobi. I'm no coward. If I die while serving my village and protecting my precious people, then it's a good death, I'd say. Leaning towards the younger boy, he ruffled his blonde hair with gusto, only letting go when Yuzu tried to bat his hand away. Now stop worrying about me. I'm strong, I'm not gonna die on this stupid mission. Come on, get up, I wanted to show you how to throw a good punch before I need to go. I know how to punch, Yuzu mumbled. Yes, but do you know how to punch someone's kneecap so hard that you break their leg? And that definitely got the boy's attention, even though he still kept his maudlin mood. It was okay though, Obito will come back, and Yuzu will see that there was no need to worry. And Obito Uchiha was no liar. It happened just like Naruto knew it would. Despite what his classmates and teachers said, he wasn't dumb. He eventually understood that he walked in between two worlds, 2 times, 2 lives. The day after his last encounter with Obito, Naruto tried to go back to the good place. But was it still good if it was just a past reflection of his own Konoha? Was it still good if Obito died? He jumped, fell down, ran into trees and walls, nothing worked. Forehead still plastered to the ground after another fall, Naruto lifted his head just enough to hit it against the ground, again and again. Come on, you dummy, come on! But he never managed to jump back to the past Konoha, never managed to go back to Obito, and try harder to stop him, or follow him on his mission. He never managed anything. And when he looked up at the memorial stone, forehead still bleeding from his latest attempt, Obito's name was still etched on it. Chapter 10. He managed just once to find his way back to the past, by pure accident, and just like he knew, he found neither Obito nor Rin. He caught a glimpse of Kakashi before tripping and going back to his own Konoha. The teen had looked even more alone than Naruto. The day he was supposed to meet his new team and sensei as a newly minted genin, Naruto didn't go to the academy and was instead standing in front of the memorial stone. A man with gray hair soon joined him, and they both stood in silence for quite some time before the man hummed. You remind me of a boy who used to hang around my friend. The resemblance is uncanny. Naruto tore his eyes away from the stone to look at the shinobi. Kakashi was slouching, hands deep into his pockets, his one visible eye topped by a heavy lid that spoke of tiredness, but there was a glint of awareness too. They had only met thrice at most in the past, and never for too long, and so Naruto was surprised that his presence has left enough of an impact on somebody other than his friend. It made him long for who Yuzu had been, someone visible, someone remembered. He could keep silent and go away. Leave Kakashi in his sorrow and nostalgia. But Naruto had never knowingly been cruel, and wouldn't start now, not with Obito's teammate. He went for the only truth he knew, because he was no liar despite what the village thought. I told him he'd die. I told you all. The boy shrugged, feigning nonchalance. You didn't believe me. To his credit, Kakashi didn't seem surprised and hummed thoughtfully, one hand coming to rest on the stone. So it was you. I never was sure, but you kept disappearing without a trace, making all able shinobi run around the village in vain, so... He didn't finish his sentence, his eye getting lost in faraway memories. His hand fell off the stone and a deep sigh left him, his shoulders slouching just a bit more. He always worried about you. Kakashi didn't say more after that. He didn't say how after both Rin and Obito, he hadn't felt whole again, had drowned in the darkness offered by ANBU, and hadn't cared about anything else than hurting and bleeding just to prove himself he still was alive as well as to punish himself for still being alive. He didn't tell him either that after Minato's death, he had completely lost himself and couldn't bear to stare at the baby left behind and feared by the village who should have worshipped him. Kakashi didn't say more, and Naruto didn't ask. Instead, the boy stated what would become his one, absolute resolve. One day I'll be the Hokage. People will have to see me, and they'll have to believe me. And none of my friends will have to die, because I'll be there to protect them. That was his Nindo. Chapter 11. Naruto had been getting ready for bed, shutting the window in his bedroom to drown out the sounds of the festival. The mission from the Land of Wave at least explained a bit more why people avoided him, or what was sealed within him, at least. It had been scary to finally see what the famed demon caged inside him felt like, and try as he might, he couldn't really fault civilians to fear the beast, not when he had seen firsthand what it could do when Naruto lost control. Still, he had asked Sakura-chan on a date, trying to keep smiling in the face of adversity, but he couldn't lie and said that he hadn't been relieved when she had dismissed him as usual. He would have been bad company. His birthday had never been his favorite day. Where other kids had received congratulations and well wishes, all Naruto had ever received was scorn and hushed wishes of bad luck. Whatever, Naruto Uzumaki didn't need anyone to celebrate his birth. He'll just have to show them once he's Hokage why they were wrong about him all along. Putting away his dirty clothes, he checked that all the lights were off before jumping on his bed. Only to fall on a couch. Not again, he whined, burrowing his head in the blue cushion. Jumping through time was really not as fun as some people would believe. It always happened at the most inconvenient times. With a sigh, the boy lifted himself up and looked around, curious. This was definitely new. He usually ended up near the center of the village, or the academy, or even the forest. He turned around and met wide blue eyes inches from his. Surprised, he fell off the couch and backpedaled. Sitting on the other end of the couch, staring at him as if he'd grown 2 heads and 3 tails, was Obito's sensei. Or, as Naruto had later learned in class, the 4th Hokage, and how awesome was that? The man had a sheath of papers at his side and seemed to be working on some scroll, pen still held just above the paper, as he kept staring at Naruto. Finally, eyes never leaving the boy, Minato put his pen and papers down. Yuzu-kun? And oh, Naruto had almost forgotten what it was like to be called that. He nodded hurriedly, getting back on his socked feet, dancing from one foot to the other as he tried to contain all the excitement he felt. He could totally ask the Hokage to teach him some super mega mysterious ninja technique. Like his instantaneous transportation jutsu. Oh, Obito had so much oh. Obito. All excitement died as Naruto scratched his neck. Sorry for, the intrusion or something. I don't really control it, you know. Amusement was dancing in the man's eyes. Control what? I'm rather curious at how you keep doing that. My seals didn't even detect you. The boy shrugged. How were you supposed to explain something you didn't even understand yourself? I don't know, it just happens, he mumbled, thinking about his predicament. He was back in the past, and Obito and Kakashi's sensei was in front of him, alive. It was his chance to save him, right? Because he was a ninja now, he could totally save people, right? Yeah, right, just like he saved Haku. Naruto? He was so preoccupied that it took him a moment before he startled, looking at the Hokage with suspicion. You know my name? There was something soft in the man's eyes. An educated guess. He stood up and crouched in front of the boy, keeping at arm's length. It's what Kushina and I will name our son. What? The boy whispered. Gently, Minato brought a hand up and pushed Naruto's fringe back, smiling. Like that, I can really see how you take after Kushina. You have the same features. And he sent a pulse of chakra and Naruto jolted back. Minato's hand fell down at his side and he looked at the boy with keen sadness. And the fact that the 9 tails is sealed in you is a dead giveaway, I guess. We're dead, aren't we? As Naruto opened his mouth, Minato cut him off. Rhetorical question, don't answer that. Tell me instead, are you happy? And wasn't that a loaded question? Was Naruto happy with his life? The boy's first automatic answer would be of course, believe it, because he never had the luxury in life to be anything but happy if he wanted to survive the loneliness. The second answer, after a few moments of reflection, would have been, no, I hate everything. I hate you for being dead and leaving me alone. I hate being myself. But when he looked into the man's eyes, his dad, his very own father, he knew the answer he needed to give. Yes. Yes, I'm happy. And Minato's shoulders slumped with relief, eyes glassy with unshed tears, and when he opened his arms, Naruto didn't need to think twice as he lunged forward for the hug he had been waiting for all his life. Everything finally felt like it was in its rightful place, and perhaps Naruto hadn't lied after all, and perhaps he was happy with Kakashi-sensei, and Sakura-chan, and even Sasuke. They stayed in each other's arms, silent, until everything faded around Naruto, and he fell onto his bed, face first into his pillow, his father's warmth still seeping into his clothes. Back in the past, Minato's arms came around himself, as if trying to hold on to the memory of the son he will never get to know. On the couch, sitting forgotten and unfinished, were the sketches of the 8 trigrams sealing style. A precaution, Kushina had said. Just a precaution. But hours later, as he finished the seal and his wife came into the room, hands around her heaving stomach and sweat beading on her forehead, Minato knew. Their fates were sealed. Chapter 12. War is no game, Naruto quickly found out. He had known it when he was young and his first friend died in one, but he had truly understood it when he was thrust in the middle of one, his friends at his sides, facing the legend of a dead man. He had always known that the shinobi life would forever change him, but had held on to his beliefs because this was what Obito had taught him when he had been a young, scared boy asking his friend to abandon duty and just stay safe in the village. And perhaps naively, Naruto had thought that nothing would ever have changed his steadfast friend who only saw silver linings, no matter what. What he learned from war was that the shinobi life spared no one, not even bumbling fools who walked through life with stars in their eyes. Through the cracks of his falling mask, Obito stared at him with nothing of the warmth that was once a given. And still, Naruto reached out, because that's what friends do. Always. He had been too young to truly remember, but he had met an elderly man once, months before his first jump to the past. He had been crying after yet another failed attempt at making friends, and dejected, the boy had sat on a bench, looking from the sidelines as parents fetched their kids, laughter surrounding them while Naruto Uzumaki seemed doomed to only hear silence. He had always felt like he lived on the peripheries, just outside of reach, just far enough to be avoided but never truly forgotten. The old man had not hesitated 1 second as he came to sit on the bench, sighing deeply once he was off his feet, legs creaking and spine popping. Naruto had wanted to scoot away, far too used to people wanting him out of sight. But the old man had turned his milky blue eyes towards him, narrowing them a little as if to better see him, hands crossed over his burnt orange sweat. And then he had smiled, content. "Everything will be better, don't you worry, kid." Naruto hadn't stayed, wary of the old stranger, and had run back to the orphanage, putting the weird encounter out of mind for the longest of time. But as he sat in his new office, a white and red hat on his head as he looked over the village he had fought for, Naruto remembered and smiled, content.